Hey, welcome, Coach's Locker Podcast with Chris Fore. This is episode 15. Glad that you're here. I thank you for checking out this podcast. Hey, hit me up. Let me know. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. Send me a direct message. Send me a shout out on Twitter at Coach Fore, COACHFORE. Drop me an email, Chris at 8laces, EIGHTLACES.org. Let me know what's working, what's not working, what you'd like to hear, see. I love suggestions for the podcast, so I'd love to hear from you. Again, thanks for checking out episode 15. Today we're going to talk special teams. What I did was I get a lot of questions on special teams. I know there's just not a lot of people online, dedicated to special teams. And I'm not saying I'm a guru or anything like that. I just really enjoy it. I talk about it a lot. I've been a special teams coordinator for a long time at the high school level, just last season, 2017, at the junior college level. And I really enjoy all things special teams. So I thought what I would do would be to put together a Q&A. So I put it out on Twitter, emailed my list of former customers, current customers, what have you. And I asked them to submit questions for a Q&A here on special teams. So that's what we're doing today, the Q&A on special teams. We're also checking in with head coach Lamont Butler of Trinity International University in Chicago, Illinois. We're going to check in with Coach. This is his first year as a head football coach at the collegiate level. And so I thought it'd be really cool to track him all season, talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, as the Trojans make their way through their conference and non-conference play. They've opened they're 1-1 at this point. So Coach won his very first game as a head coach, which is cool. At head coach at the college level, he's been a head coach at the high school level. But if you haven't listened, you got to check out my podcast with Coach Butler. I can't remember the episode number, but if you go to 8laces.org/podcast, again 8laces.org/podcast, you can find my podcast with Coach Butler. You get to know him a little bit. And then we're going to spend about 12 to 15 minutes a week here during their season, kind of recapping, reviewing their week, and what's going on in the mind of a head coach throughout the week and during the game, after the game. I think it's real cool. So we're going to jump into that right now. We're going to go to Coach Butler first, and then after that, we're going to do the special teams Q&A. It's about 35 minutes long. Coach Butler's about 15. So what I'm going to do here during the season, we're going to shorten our podcast to be right around 45 minutes total during the season here. And there won't be any guests during the season outside of Coach Butler, about 12 to 15 minutes with him. And then I'll be hitting on different topics here throughout the season, about 30-minute long podcast. So again, hey, I hope you enjoy. And thanks for checking out Coach's Locker Podcast, episode 15. Hey, you're going to hear me say 14 once we get into the special team stuff. I was wrong. I'm a moron. So this is definitely episode 15. You are listening to the Coach's Locker Podcast with Chris Fore, a place for all coaches to call home. The Coach's Locker Podcast is a part of the Football Coaching Podcast Network. Please visit footballcoachingpodcast.com to hear and see our entire lineup of top football coaches coming to you every single podcast with valuable information to help you and your program. The Coach's Locker Podcast with Chris Fore exists to help prepare coaches to be hired for the job of their dreams and to provide coaches with dynamite resources to become even more successful in their field. You can reach me on Twitter at Coach Fore, that's at COACHFORE, and my podcast home is at 8laces.org/podcast. That's 8laces, EIGHTLACES.org/podcast. Welcome to the Coach's Locker Podcast with Chris Fore. Now, let's get after it. All right, we're here with Lamont Butler. Coach Butler is in his very first year as a head coach at Trinity International University out in Illinois. Trinity International, the Trojans are an NAIA school. And if you didn't have a chance to listen to my full interview with Coach Butler, go to our archives, 8laces.org/podcast, and you'll see a whole hour-long interview with Coach Butler, talk about his career so far, talk about his philosophy. We talk about how he got into coaching at the college level one day when he got a phone call, kind of a random phone call to his boss when they were in a meeting, and that led to a job at the college level, and then you'll have to re-listen and find out how he became a head football coach at the collegiate level. But Coach, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to recap, kind of follow Coach Butler and the Trojans through the season. He's been kind enough to give me about 15 minutes every Sunday to recap the game. I blew it. I apologize. I missed his first game, unfortunately. So, Coach, we're going to talk about that game first. Boy, it was a barn burner, 53-46 to kick off the year. Your first game as a head coach was a W. That's got to feel pretty good opening the season with, Coach.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was fun. There's a lot of things we got to work on to, get better. But obviously the win in that fashion, it's always a good thing.
Yeah, so Coach's quarterback, Jonathan Santos, a kid from out here in California, from Southgate, California, he blew up the record book. He threw for 732 yards. Not only is that a school record, but he also broke the single game NAIA record for passing yards, 732 yards. Coach, did you guys go into that game knowing that you would be able to throw for a lot of yards, or take us through kind of what it was like preparing for Presentation College and a game plan there?
We knew what we could do offensively, and which played to our strength. Jonathan's a very good player, and so we definitely wanted to utilize him in that manner. And we know he can throw the ball around, and so he had a good day, and we had some big plays offensively that got us into some of those situations. I know we had it was like a 90-yard pass. It was off of an offside, so we just threw it up and we caught it and scored. Or I should say 82 yards or something like that. But it was clicking that day. And game plan wise, we went in and we saw some of the things that they did and some of the things we could take advantage of, and we were fortunate enough to do that. So,
Coach, what was that like opening up at? I know it's been 2 weeks now. What was it like there? First kickoff, you're on the sidelines for your very first game as a head coach. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that day was like for you?
Yeah. So. For that, for me, it was just another game. I've head coached at the high school level, and so it's a little bit different at the college level, obviously. But as far as what it was going like, I don't think I've ever yelled as much as a coordinator as I have as a head coach. Just encouraging guys, and then trying to make sure the entire team is all on the same page, whether it's offense, defense, or special teams. So. Try to do a lot more managing. At the high school level, typically a head coach, unless you're at a bigger school, you're able to oversee everything. And at a smaller school, you're probably calling one side of the ball, so you're primarily focused on that and trying to get that going. I think the big thing for me was just trying to manage the game, as well as make sure our guys are doing what they need to do. In all three phases of the game.
Yeah. So, Coach, that was a tight game. You guys were tied at half, 21-21 at half. You took the lead in the third quarter. They came back. Yeah, it looks like I'm reading the recap. You guys get the ball on your 7-yard line, 1:34 to go. Yep. Man, for you guys to march 93 yards to end up, taking over, winning that football game. What was that like, having 93 yards to go with 1:30 on the clock? Take us through what you're thinking as the head coach and what you're saying.
Well, for me, I try to remain as calm as I can in those situations. I mean, on the inside, I was probably, going crazy or, oh man, somebody has to make a play here. But, on the sideline, I was really calm and, just at that point in time, our offense had, they've been scoring all day. And so, I have faith enough that they were going to do it again. So it was my job to be the biggest cheerleader on the sideline.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Coach, you guys, last year Trinity was 2-8. You opened the year with a win. So now you're it's got to feel pretty good opening with a win like that. How did you address the team afterwards in the locker room?
I told them we hadn't done anything yet.
Okay.
It was great win. You always want to, anytime you get a win, you want to celebrate it. You want to, you definitely want to be excited about it because wins are hard. Any way you win, whether it's a big win or if it's a tough one, wins are, they don't come a lot.
Yeah.
And when they do, you got to cherish them. And so, I told our guys to, enjoy this time, enjoy that moment, and then, we'll watch the film. We'll figure out what we need to get better at and what tweaks we need to make, and then we'll get ready. We'll start getting ready for our next opponent. And we haven't, one game. It's one game. Now you won the game, love it, but it's only one game, and we still have 9 more to go in the regular season. And so if we want to get to where we want to get to, we got to continue to focus each week on our opponent at hand. So enjoy the win, but then, once we watch the film, now we got to get back to business.
Sure. So you guys play Saturday night. Do you bring the team in at all on Sunday to watch that, or is there a rule on that?
We come in Sunday night. So
Okay.
We'll have the guys for about 2.5 hours on Sunday night.
Okay.
Watch the film, and then they'll lift and do things like that.
And do they watch that by position? Is it by unit? A little of both?
We'll meet as a unit, and then we'll break off into our position groups.
Okay. And then how about your staff? What does their Sunday look like after a Saturday night game, Coach?
So we'll come in at 2. We'll have a staff meeting, and then after the staff meeting, we'll watch special teams together as a staff, and then we'll break off into offense, defense, and then we'll watch the film together like that. After you watch the film, then we start breaking down our next opponent. Okay.
And then the kids come in, and then do you guys meet again after that, or when you're done with the kids, do you go home for the night?
We'll meet for a quick second. While the offense is lifting, the defense will meet, and then while the defense is lifting, the offense will meet. So during that meeting time, during the lifting time for your side of the ball, we usually meet, and then we'll talk about. We'll continue the game plan and talk through some things.
Gotcha. So yeah, that brings us to last night's game. The Trojans they traveled up to St. Paul, Minnesota. What's that road trip like for you, Coach?
It's a 6-hour drive from here to St. Paul. We stopped in Eau Claire on Friday. We left Friday night or Friday afternoon. We got to Eau Claire. We stayed up there for a little bit, and shout out to University of Wisconsin Eau Claire. They're generous enough to let us use their practice field and also their dining facilities, and so they helped us out a lot on the road. And then we stayed at a hotel in Eau Claire, and then we drove about 1 hour and 20 to St. Paul for the game.
Okay, so how much of that management are you having to do at the NAIA level, Coach? I know every school's different. I know some head coaches are having to organize all of that. Some have a little more support. Take us through your first road trip there. What are you doing exactly as the head coach?
I actually hung out a lot. I didn't have to do much.
Good.
We split up our duties on staff, so everyone has their auxiliary, their administrative stuff they have to do. So one guy is responsible for film, one guy is responsible for travel, one guy is responsible for equipment, One guy's responsible for academics and such. So we basically divided that up among the staff, and so the coach responsible for travel. I mean, he did a really good job. Didn't have to worry about too much. Didn't have any issues, I don't think, on the road.
Okay, good. And so you guys opened the season with a big win, set some national records, and then last night you fell on the road there to St. Thomas. St. Thomas,
Yep.
a very good program in Division III. Coach, looks like, looking at the box score here, they jump out, start their season, because this was their first game, with a kick return for a touchdown. I don't think I've ever won a game giving up a kick return to start a touchdown. That's a bad way to start. What was the vibe like on the sideline after that happened?
I'm actually watching the play right now as we speak, and you can just it wasn't a good vibe, but it wasn't bad. Looks like guys are thinking, okay, I got to get ready for the next play, or we talk to our guys about winning the moment, and so. You're going to have some good moments, you're going to have some bad ones, but you got to make sure you're, in that moment. And so, at that point in time, it was okay. They got us there. All right, let's focus up. Let's figure out what we got to do, and then let's try to attack it.
Yeah, it was a rough quarter, Coach. They scored 34 points there. I mean, what are you bringing them all together? Are you bringing your team together after that first quarter to chat?
Yeah.
What did you do after that first quarter?
Brought everybody together. I think for us, especially with a team like St. Thomas, hats off to them. They're a really good program. They've been in the playoffs, I think, the past 5 years or something like that. And I think they went like 2015, I think it was, they're in the national championship. And so, I mean, very, very great, very, very good program. Coach Caruso does a great job with them. And for us, it was all about, I think, effort. And, I don't think we were exerting the amount of effort that we needed to give to be able to compete with a team like St. Thomas. Just being honest, I mean, they play really, really hard. They all do their jobs, and we got to make sure that our effort is matching that. I mean, we can be in the right place, but if we're not given that effort that we need to give, I mean, it's not going to happen. So,
yeah. So I mean, they were ranked, I think, 6th in the preseason poll.
They were 3. Number 3.
Well, they were 3 this year coming in preseason. Okay.
Yeah.
So, an NAI team going to play a team that, like that, with that kind of power, I mean, how do you make the schedule? Is that something you do? You make the schedule? Is that something your athletic director does?
I'm able to, get the games and make the schedule. This was not my doing, though. This was scheduled before I took over.
Yeah. I know the high school I'm working at right now as an assistant principal, we played a team the other night. we had no business playing, and that's a question I was asking, like, how'd this game get scheduled, So sometimes you do. You inherit a schedule, and you got to just go play the game. Is that a home and home, or you guys see them again next year?
Yeah, we see them again next year, so they'll be coming down to us next year.
Gotcha. So, Coach, you guys go on the road. I mean, what's a loss like that? It's almost something you get out. I've always said it's almost better to get blown out than lose by 3 or 4 points, right, in the last couple minutes.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways. How was that road trip home for you guys last night? This morning, did you stay there last night? Or
we left. We got here early. We got here like 11:30 last night.
Okay.
So it was quiet. I think for me, and I don't know how our guys are wired in terms of how they deal with football games. For me, after the game is over, it's over.
Yeah.
And so I'm not like I know most guys will be angry for 24 or 48 hours after a loss. For me, it's bigger than football. Football is a game. Obviously, I coach it and I love it, but it won't dictate my attitude. And so love all my guys and everything like that. And we'll obviously watch the film and we'll figure out what we need to fix, and we'll critique them and those types of things. But once the game is over, it's over, and I'm not gonna not like a guy because he didn't do well in the game or something like that, or because we lost. So, but I mean, the ride home, it was fine. It was quiet. I got a chance to actually grade the film. St. Thomas, they had it uploaded within like 30 minutes after the game, which is crazy.
Wow.
So when we were on the drive back, we had a 6-hour drive back. So I was able to get my grading done and then just hang out for the rest of the ride.
Okay. So that's interesting. At that level, Coach, is the home team responsible for that game film, or how does that work?
Yeah, so the home team is responsible for basically to send the game film, and St. Thomas are not an NAIA team, so they didn't have to do it, but they were, gracious enough to, give us the copy of the film, and, which is good for us because now we didn't have to worry about who was going to film and those types of things, and so we were able to, get that, and the convenience of having it uploaded, 30 minutes after, you're done playing, and you can, grade it and not worry about having to come in early or, staying late last night to try and grade it. So
that's awesome. What system do you guys use?
We use Huddle.
On Huddle, there you go. All right.
Yeah.
Coach, you got Concordia University, another road trip next Saturday. Yeah. What are your initial thoughts there?
They're a very well-coached team. Coach Shoemaker does a really good job with them. They went to the playoffs last year, and so I know they're returning their running back. Seems like he's been there forever. Those high school kids. Those high school kids who have, they either start their freshman year or they got family members coming through, and it seems like they've been there forever. This is how I feel about this running back. So I think this is finally his senior year. Hopefully, I'll see what they got down on there too deep. But it'll be another good test for us, and we're definitely gonna have to play a better game if we want to compete and win the game.
Yeah. Well, Coach, good luck up there in Ann Arbor, Michigan next Saturday. We appreciate your time. Well, by the time you're hearing this, it'll be tomorrow. So good luck tomorrow, Coach. And again, I really thank you. Appreciate you taking some time to talk to us about the last couple weeks there with Trojan football. And we'll talk to you next Sunday, Coach.
All right, I appreciate it.
So, as I said, we're going to start here with just a short little review. I don't know how long I'll talk, but a short little review on what happened at Penn State. You know what happened, decades of child abuse happening with a former football coach who now is, was relegated to prison. And, a whole legacy really tarnished in Coach Paterno, and rightly so in many ways. Tore down his statue, it took Penn State a little while to recover from all of that. And, like I said earlier, you had a ton, I don't know the exact number, but dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of boys who were molested or raped on that campus or off campus under the leadership of a coach, and it could have been avoided. Here's how, okay? And if Coach Paterno and the athletic director would have done just a few things, okay, they could have got this monster out of working with. They could have removed him from that football program, had him arrested a whole lot earlier, Sandusky, okay? But, years ago, there was a situation at a high school I was working with. I don't want to say too much about it because I'm not sure who's listening or what have you. But I was, and I'm not going to get too far into it, but I was very concerned about a relationship I saw on campus. And went to my principal about it. And the long and short story of it is, and it wasn't a coach, it was a faculty member and a student on my campus. And what happened at the end of the day, I was right. My gut told me some things I saw that were just not right. And it's actually happened twice in my career where I just saw things, I heard things that did not have the appearance of being right. And I think a lot of times, guys, these are just like a gut feel, and that's what it was. So in both situations, I went to my principal and told them what I saw. One of the situations, the guy was really shocked about it, surprised, didn't believe that anything could be going on, but it was. And obviously he was very thankful that I brought that to his attention. But, most people listening here, no matter what sport you coach, you're going to be around minors and who might be going through an issue like this. We see headlines every day, it seems like, with some kind of situation. I just read one earlier today, a female teacher out in Florida having sex with a male student, over the summer. So anyway, let's get into it real quick. Joe Pa, what Coach Paterno should have done. So a guy named Mike McQueary, who was an assistant coach, Mike McQueary saw something happening in the showers with Sandusky and a boy. And he went to his dad. He talked to his dad that night. And then the next morning, Saturday morning, he went in to talk with Joe Pa, Coach Paterno. Okay? But so the first step, what Joe Pa could have done was gone to his supervisor immediately with Mike McQueary's testimony. So Coach McQueary saw something Friday night. He goes in, he meets with Paterno Saturday morning, okay, with an eyewitness account of what he saw in the showers between Sandusky and a boy. He should have gone directly to the athletic director. He did not do that. Okay, he didn't contact the athletic director till the next Monday, 2 full days. So the second thing, he should have had Mike McQueary write down exactly what he saw when he reported to Joe Pa. Okay, this would leave imagination out of all the details, investigation, etc. later on. It's called contemporaneous witness statement, meaning like not obviously it can't be as it's happening, but contemporaneous means at the same time he's telling you, right after he tells you what's gone on, boom, have him write down everything. So that's the second thing Joe Pa could have done. Okay, and writing down everything is real important because it, like I said, the facts will be remembered for a lot longer. Third thing, he should have taken that document written by McQueary to the meeting with Curley, the athletic director, as evidence. Okay, not just a verbal thing, but written evidence. Okay, now we know why he didn't do that. He's trying to protect his buddy. That's my guess. He didn't believe what he heard. Number 4, he should have scheduled a meeting with Curley, McQueary, so the AD, the coach who saw it, and himself for the very next day. Okay, after meeting with the AD. Okay, so Joe Pa should have gone right to the AD. He should have gone right to the AD. After going to the AD, he should have said, I want to bring McQueary in here tonight or tomorrow, and 3 of us will talk about this. Okay. Now, so that's really all Joe Pa could have done. Now, you could put in here, talk to the, coach who's been accused of it. Sure, that would be something to do too. But really the first steps are those 4 steps I just gave. Athletic director Tim Curley, what he should have done. Curley should have taken, so let's say he gets that written testimony, right? Take that written test, or see what the biggest mistake Tim Curley made in that whole situation, I studied it a whole lot, is he didn't bring in McQueary to talk with him. Okay? He never interviewed McQueary, which was just stupid and silly. All right? It's some of what we just saw happen with the whole Ohio State thing. So Curley should have taken the testimony from McQueary and asked Joe Pa to write down everything McQueary told him. Okay? And that's the first step for Curley, the athletic director. Okay, Joe, I want you to write down everything you remember that McQueary told you. Again, that contemporaneous witness account, firsthand or secondhand. In the world of lawsuits, contemporary writing is very, very important. Okay. Second thing Curley should have done, gone up the ladder to his direct supervisor with the information. Go up the ladder right now. Go to his direct supervisor. That's another thing Curley didn't do. Number 3, I believe it should have been Curley's responsibility to find out right away who this young man with one of his staff members was. Okay? Again, something he did not do. You got to find out. Okay, you're Curly now. You're a supervisor. You're the head coach. You need to find out, okay, who was that boy? He should have tracked that young boy down, gotten his name, his information from Sandusky, or by whatever means he could have. He needed to get that boy's information. Joe Pot and Curly, both, okay, head football coach, AD. They should have followed up, okay, so both of them together. Joe Pot should have followed up with his supervisor. Curly should have followed up with his supervisor. And I kind of put in there a 48-hour guideline. So if something happens in the future, or if you suspect something's happening and you go to your supervisor, follow up in about 48 hours with your supervisor, okay? Hey, what's going on? I want to know what have you done with the information I gave you? Because a lot of what happens these days is, well, I told my supervisor, and then you think you're off the hook, okay? You aren't off the hook. Follow up for the sake of that minor, for the sake of that kid. Follow up. See what's going on. Where is this investigation going now? There are protections, whistleblower protections, if that's something you're afraid about. Okay. Number 2 thing that they both should have done, they should have gone to the campus police to report. This is an alleged crime. A crime. You have a coach, an assistant coach who saw a crime happening. They should have reported that to the campus police. Okay, the conversation goes something like this. Hey, I reported a rape on campus to my supervisor, and I don't believe they're doing anything about it. I want to file a formal police report with you right now about this matter. Boom. Done. Folks, if just those couple of things would have happened at Penn State, again, dozens and dozens and dozens. I'm not talking about saving the coach's, history, saving his legendary status. No, I'm talking about the kids first. Dozens and dozens of kids would have been saved from going through the crap they went through. Okay? Secondary to that, the whole program would not have been torn apart like it was. Okay? So, folks, if you see something, say something. Your gut's going to tell you the truth most of the time, right? And so do those things. Write down what you see. Keep a paper trail. So let's say you see something or you think something's going on, pretty serious. Go to your head coach if you're a head coach. Go to your AD if you're a head coach. Okay, if you're an athletic director, go to your principal. Write it down. Follow that up with an email. Hey, I just want to document our conversation. We just talked about da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay? Because, guys, I've seen in a trial, I worked as an expert witness. I've seen a case that, I almost gave it away, but it's still an ongoing thing. But I have seen a situation where a coach called a district official to report something, and the district official said, nope, we never got a phone call. So you got to do it in writing, okay? And then follow up after that. So you see something, go to your supervisor, have that conversation, follow it up in writing with your supervisor. 48 hours later, see what's going on. If nothing's going on, if they're trying to sweep this on the rug, they don't want this to be a big thing, go to the police. And like I said, real simple. Hey, I reported a rape on campus to my supervisor. I don't believe they're doing anything about it. I want to file a formal police report. Okay? So, there you go. Season's happening now. You never know what you might see, what you might run into around a corner or what have you. All right, let's talk about some special teams. You talk about a big old change of pace here. So I'm going to go through some questions here. Something else about my podcast here. Now that the season's going, I kind of did this deliberately. I've had a lot of guests on the show during the summer, okay? One, because I launched the podcast this summer. I kind of wanted to engage some of those guys I've had on here. I think some really good, folks to listen, to talk philosophy with, etc. I've had some great conversations with these guys. I have loved every minute of my interviews, and so that's been a lot of fun. Okay, but I had a lot of free time in the summer to do those things. And then also, I think in the summer, you guys had more time to listen. So during the season here, okay, we're going to crack this thing down I'm going to try really hard to stay at about 30-minute long podcast. We might go to 35 during the season. So from now until December, we're going to shorten these things up. Don't think I'm having many guests at all. Okay, outside of Coach Butler from Trinity, I'm going to be interviewing him once a week. We're kind of going to follow him through their season. That's Trinity International out in Chicago. And that'll be about 12-minute discussion. So the podcast will be about 40 minutes here during the season. So a little shorter than out of season. All right, so let's get it here. How would you set up a punt return versus a team that punts from the shotgun and stay defensively sound in your alignment? Okay, so that's a question. Your first question. I decided not to give the names of these people because I don't want to, I don't know, chance of somebody who gave this question and their opponent listening at the same time. I'm paranoid that way sometimes. So how would you set up a punt return versus a team that punts from the shotgun and stay defensively sound? So in 2014, we had one of the top returners in the whole state of California by the name of Faison Knight. Tremendous, the best punt returner I've ever coached. And he led the state of California at one point that year. I think if we would have played all 14 games, he would have finished leading the state. But we had a high punt return average, like 26 yards a punt return, something like that, while I was at Oak Hills. And the best team who faced off, the best team who punted to us, and one of the best punt schemes I've ever seen, Silverado High School. My good friend over there, Coach Genorio, and I don't know who it was over there who did it. Maybe Coach Kieran Jones made the decision. Somebody over there made a decision not to kick to us all night and make my life pretty difficult that night. So they kept their quarterback out there, and they went to basically, an offensive formation. So the first time, they kind of tricked us, if I remember right. They ran some kids off, and I thought we saw some running on, and so I was calling punt return. So our punt return unit goes out there. We probably switched only 3 or 4 guys, but our punt return unit goes out there, and then they called a play. Okay, if I remember how it went down. It's been 4 years here, but we kind of got screwed there. So, or maybe we had to call timeout. I think I can't remember exactly what happened, but they did a really great job of cueing us off balance. And basically, from that point on, from that very first time on, our head coach, who's also the DC, said, "Hey, defense the rest of the night." So that's what we had to do. So they absolutely neutralized and took our punt return game out of that game by doing this. And so how I would set up a punt return team versus a team that punts from the shotgun and stay defensively sound in your alignment, I would not worry about a punt return, to be very honest with you. If it's a punt, if they're doing something, I think it's one of the most dangerous ways to punt. You know me, boys, I'm a shield punt guy, shield punt maniac. But I think one of the most, if I wasn't a shield punt guy, I'd be a 4 wide receiver, 1 back, okay? That's what I would do. That's how I would punt, because draw that up, okay? Think about it. How do you defend it? You got to go man on man on all 4 of those wide receivers, right? There's 4 guys. You put 1 deep. There's 5. That leaves you 6 in the box, okay? That leaves you 6 in the box on their 7 in the box. You're screwed. It's very, very difficult to defend that. So I would play defense first. Okay, that's what I would do there. How do you verify the kids who are going to play on Friday night? I think what he's saying here, how do you verify the kids? I think he means, like, as you're getting ready, how do you make sure that every kid knows that they're on the team or what have you? Folks, that all starts on the weekends with your depth chart. And again, if you check the check 8laces.org/podcast, go to those show notes, and I've got some, really good information. Listen to those podcasts about how we do that, okay? But very quickly, you've got to stay organized with a depth chart, okay, starting on the weekends. Last couple years here, coaching high school ball, every Sunday night in our meeting, I would ask our coach, our defensive coordinator, all right, hey, who's our starting 11 guys? And then I would create our punt team through that. Okay, you got Gabe out there. Gabe is useless for our punt return team. That's a big old defensive lineman boy. Get him out of there, okay? So I would say, okay, Gabe's coming off, so-and-so's coming on. So, but you got to get through that on Sunday, make that depth chart. I think you go 2 deep, okay, at the high school level. Go a 2 deep depth chart and have it with you every day of the week. okay, and have your kids coming on and off the sidelines, okay, so that you don't have those issues, so you don't have those issues on Friday night, and then Thursday, obviously, you're going to be going through your special. A lot of teams, don't do special teams till Thursday. So you're going to be confirming, or as this coach said, verifying the kids who are on those teams. Each of you might have a different way to do that. I really liked how we did it last year at Victor Valley College. My head coach is something he would, we started with practice. Every kid got shoulder to shoulder. Defense on one side, offense on the other side, all on one sideline. Toes on the white sideline, and I would call out kickoff. And the first and second kickoff teams would come line up in the formation that they are on the field. Okay, but they do that right about 5 yards from the sideline, and they line up first, second string. Okay, and then I would call out. I would look at them from left to right, and I'd say, Davis, Fore, green, white, and I'd go right down, make sure all 11 are there. Boom. And then I'd say, all right, kickoff off. And then I go, second kickoff. Boom, 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 boom. Make sure they're all there. And the kids learn quickly. If we didn't have, if we went through maybe 3 teams and then that 4th team screwed it up, was missing a kid, we'd go all the way back to the beginning and start all over. So it's a great little drill, great little discipline. Another way I've done it over the years is just we line up everybody on the goal line and literally call them out to the 10 and make them get in the huddle, or how they would be lined up on the field if it's like, a punt team situation where we don't really huddle, and kind of do it the same way, but I'd actually have them line up. Last year we did it. They just line up shoulder to shoulder. I'd have them get more in the actual formation. So a couple ways to do that on Thursdays. How do I get other coaches involved? It says right now most of them are just standing around. Okay? Folks, this only can happen. I take it that the guy who asked this is probably a special teams coordinator. It only happens if the head coach has the buy-in to do that. Because what happens is if the special teams coordinator only, or maybe 2 guys, are the ones who are real passionate about special teams and getting everybody out there and going, okay? The other coaches, who aren't interested in it, they're going to fall by the wayside. They're not going to pay attention. But that coordinator, those assistant coaches, they're not going to have power over those guys to make them want to be involved, to inspire them to be involved. It's just not going to happen. And so unless I had a lot of guys ask this question. And quite honestly, there's no way to inspire all those other coaches if the head coach isn't taking it seriously. If he's over there screwing around or over there sitting on a golf cart, okay, when everybody else is doing special teams, it's a sign and signal to the rest of the staff that it's just not important. So really, I hate to say it, that's the only way to get all the rest of the coaches involved. Okay. Next question is, how do you line up against an onside kick? Here's how I line up against an onside kick. Depends on what their formation is. I get questions like this a lot, and that's always my answer. Is what is the formation, okay? Because here's the deal. At the end of the day, you can't have just one way you line up against an onside kick. You can't have just, okay, hey, here's our onside kick defense. Here's our kick return for onside kick, because you don't know how they're kicking it. And so it's real important. One thing that's brought me good success, mediocre success, what's allowed me to have better special teams units than my opponents the last 8 years maybe, is that we do a lot of stuff on the weekends to prepare us. Okay? I'm gonna watch every single time you kick the ball by the time we've played. It might be overkill. Some of you think that might be overkill. But I did it as a head coach when I was also calling the offense, and that's very difficult, okay? It's been a lot easier since 2013. I've only been a special teams coordinator maybe special teams coordinator, running backs. It's a cushy job, running backs coach. But I'm going to watch every single kick you've done, okay? And so for me, it depends on how you've lined up, okay? If they're lining up, kind of hard to do some of this on the radio with you here. But if they're lining up the ball on our kick return on our right hash, and they've got six to our left, then we're gonna obviously put a few more guys over on that left hand side. But standard, usually we're gonna put 6 guys on the front line, okay, about 12 yards off the ball. I don't want them lined up right at 10 because I don't want them chasing the football in front of them. So about 11 and a half yards off the ball, 6 guys, and then we're going to have 4 guys behind them and then 1 returner deep. So, usually if we really think it's an onside kick, we're going to sell out to protect that football. What you're giving up is the pooch. They might get a pooch over you. So we also train that deep returner to fair catch those things. It's a good little coaching point there. We teach him to fair catch those pooches. So just sprint as fast as you can, get up there and fair catch those things. But it's kind of hard to answer that question, Coach, if you're listening. How do you line up against an onside kick? Really depends on how, what their philosophy is, what they're trying to do against you. If it's just a 55, right? They got the ball in the middle of the field and they line up in a 55. Then I'm going to, obviously through film study, I'm going to see if they like onside kicking one way more than the other. If you can't tell there, if it's just kind of 50-50, then I'm going to protect that 50-50, meaning I'm going to, spread out those 6 guys evenly across that 48.5 yard line. And again, the reason I don't put them right on the 50 is I don't want them running up to the opponent's 45 and creating an issue there by touching the ball too early, So we want them to be patient, let the ball come to you. Okay, that's a whole nother discussion. But as far as lining up, if they're a straight 55 team, ball in the middle, then we're going to be very balanced, six-man front. Next question. I'm curious to know how you decide on a kick return to run. Kind of the same idea. We usually just do the double wall, and I'm looking for ideas. Yeah, a lot of high schools do that. They'll go 5-4-2, so 5 guys on the front line, then 4 guys and 2 guys deep. Those front 5 will drop back, 25 yards. The next 4, they'll drop back 10 yards, and, here we are. That's our double wedge. Okay, that's what this coach says. It looks like we usually just go to double wall, and I'm looking for ideas. Curious to know how you decide on a kick return to run. So, great question. I helped a coach here. I won't say who. I helped a coach here in Southern California this summer quite a bit as he transitioned to being a special teams coordinator on the kick return game. And like I told him, we're going to make a land chart, and I've got that. I'll put that link on the show notes here. Okay, I'll get show notes for this show, 8laces.org/podcast, 8laces.org/podcast. We'll have show notes up, okay, for this show. It is, again, I'm looking it up here, sorry. This is show, I think it's 14. It might end up being 15. I just thought about that. Yeah, this is going to go up on September 7th. Okay. And so, yeah, this is going up September 7th. And so it's show 15. I think I said 14 earlier. This is show 15. So those show notes, episode 15, I'll put a link to that Joe Paul article I talked to a little earlier, but then I'll also show you a land chart, what I'm talking about. If you haven't heard me talk about that before, I'm going to know where every single kick of the year is gone. Where are they trying to kick to? Do they have a philosophy on trying to pin you to a sideline or pin you to a certain place on the field? And from that's where I'm going to start on a kick return. Okay, for instance, and I encourage you to check this out, folks. It's not that, I think it's like $5 maybe. And I got a tremendous Twitter message the other night from a coach on Coachbook. If you've never heard of Coachbook, okay, go to Coachbook. My Coachbook, is it? My Coachbook. Sorry, Coach Tube. Coach Book is something else. It's a great website. Coach Tube, okay? CoachTube.com. If you go to CoachTube.com, I've got a few resources up here for you. If you've never heard of it, it's a great site, okay? But if you go to CoachTube.com, and then you go to football, and then you go to special teams. So CoachTube.com, football, special teams. You'll see I have on there a kick return, and it's $7.99. Okay, and I'm gonna give you a coupon code. I'm gonna give you a coupon code in the show notes for this show. Okay, the show notes for this show again. 8laces.org/podcast show 15. Okay, you'll see the show notes. There'll be a coupon code for there, and I think it gets it down to like $4 or $5. And folks, it's a double right kickoff, okay, return scheme. And so you'll see why I call it double right, because we're double teaming two guys off to the right hand side, right up the alley. And so to give you an idea of how I kind of do things, kick return wise, was that question, how do you decide how you're going to kick return here? What I'll do is I'll see where they're kicking that football, what they're trying to do to us. And this kick return that I designed last year, okay, we saw that they were trying to pin us down there in a corner, and their scheme was not very sound to pin us in that corner. So I said, all right, let's just catch the ball where they're kicking it off to our right. We're going to double team these two guys, and we'll be off, man. And so it's probably my favorite kick return ever, okay? And so if you check that out, I got a message. I can't find it now, but I got a message this weekend from a coach that was awesome, because he said, Coach, I bought your Coach Tube course on the kick return. And he said, dude, we just set a record. The coach is here in California, and I don't want to say who it is, because I don't want to give him away. I didn't ask his permission on it. But he said we set a school record, a 100-yard kick return. And man, here's what he said. He said, Coach, bought your kickoff return course on CoachTube. Been working it last 2 weeks of practice. Opening kickoff of the season last night, school record 100-yard return for a TD untouched. Man, that pumps me up. So this guy spent $4 or $5 on my kick return, and I think he's happy he'd spent that $4 or $5. So it's a good kick return. Again, that's CoachTube.com. Then go to football, special teams. You'll see my kickoff return scheme there. And what makes it really good is that, again, we're going to take the ball where you're giving it to us, and we're going to set up our scheme from there. Instead of having you run out the same kick return every single time, we're going to go man schemes, okay? A man scheme, and we're going to take that ball right where your weakness is. So that's kind of how I set up kick returns. I also have on my own website, 8laces.org. On my own website, I have a kick return manual on there. It's got 28 kick and punt returns. And folks, just take the thinking out, okay? Take the thinking out and go with someone who has created something. It's kick returns against every scheme you can imagine that you've probably seen, and they're ready to go, okay? You get a PDF and a PowerPoint. So if you're looking for kick returns, I don't know of another, great resource. I'll be honest with you. If I did, I'd promote those guys, but this gives you 28 kick and punt returns and blocks, and you get a PowerPoint, so you buy it, you show it to your team, roll it out that very day, okay? So that's how we decide on what kind of kick return to run. We start with the ball. Where's the ball going, first of all? Then I'll look at their personnel, okay? And we'll go from there. 3 more questions, guys. 3 more questions. What is the biggest special team screw-up you've ever made? I don't want to do that this season. That's a great question. We had a couple years ago, 2014, I was a special teams coordinator at Oak Hills High School. We were playing Highland High School to open the season. And we had a safety against them. Sent our kick return team out there. Those cats, by a mistake, they kicked the ball straight up in the air. And it comes down, not dead straight, pretty straight up in the air. And it comes down at 11 yards. Well, when they kicked it up in the air, I started yelling, Peter, Peter, Peter. And every other coach on our staff started yelling, Peter, 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 get away from the ball. Well, that darn ball comes down at 11 yards and right back to them. Well, since it went 10 yards, right, it went to 11, they got the football. We lost possession of that ball. My boss, Coach Kistner, was mad at me. I don't blame him. I wasn't prepared for that, okay? I'd never seen that in all my life. I think I'd been coaching 14 years at that point, 13 years. I'd never seen it, never thought of it. That's my biggest special team screw up. Can you send me a sample of your depth chart? Yes, Coach, I can. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to make it real easy for you. I've got a great depth chart. It took me a long time to come up with it after using a whole bunch of different ones. Okay, 8laces.org/podcast. Check out my podcast on special teams. I got a lot of resources in the show notes on those two podcasts from special teams. Okay, I got a lot of stuff in there. Okay, so 8laces.org/podcast. Okay, and then you're going to look for the show notes. And I've given a bunch of resources on special teams there. I got a good email this week from a coach here in Southern California who said, man, I just found your podcast. It's tremendous. And then he said, I just found all these great episodes on the special teams that you've given us. Like, man, that's awesome. Thanks for all those resources. So it looks like it's episode 4, okay, and episode 6. Episode 4 and episode 6, we did show notes on those two with special teams. So check out both of those show notes, episodes 4 and 6, okay? All right, next question, and that's, again, Coach, that's where you'll see a sample of my depth chart. Do you onside kick to your own sideline away from it? Every time to my own sideline. I will onside kick to my own sideline as much as I can. I think a lot of coaches do that. And the reason why is if something goes haywire right on that sideline, you know, we teach our guys. We go over this first game of the season, Thursday. If something goes a little haywire, there's a big scrum, you're going to get into the officials' heads. We're all yelling, blue, 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 blue. Whatever team, you know, whatever color you are, we're all going to start pointing that it's our ball. We're all going to start being very loud that it's our ball. That's really the only reason. And I, you know, if we're kicking it, onside kicking it, and we have the option, we will always go to our sideline. Sometimes that's hard if you have a right or left-handed kicker. You know, that might make a little bit of a difference, okay? But we're always going to kick to our sideline. We're going to back our guys up just a little more than normal without giving it away, okay? Just to give our kids a little more room, because you have that control on your sideline. And then again, we're gonna jump on that thing, and we're gonna win an Oscar. Okay. All right, there you have it. That's episode 15 of the Coach's Locker podcast. I really hope you enjoyed this episode and the Q&A period there on special teams. Folks, I also hope you enjoyed Coach Butler. Coach, thank you if you're listening. Thank you to Coach Butler for sharing about your ups and downs here first 2 weeks, you know, going 1-1. And I appreciate your time and effort sharing with the coaching community about being a head coach and all that goes into that. It's going to be real interesting hearing from you. So next week, next Friday, we're going to talk about the 10 commandments of an effective kickoff team. So that's next Friday. We're going to do another little episode 16. It'll be another special teams feature. We'll talk kickoff team next Friday. Folks, don't forget to check out footballcoachingpodcast.com, footballcoachingpodcast.com for a list of top football coaching podcasts. Really would love to have you check out footballcoachingpodcast.com. We've got some really good ones on our group and our list here. And then also my podcast home, 8laces.org, EIGHTLACES.org/podcast. All the places you can find me are right in there. Also, all the show notes and all the past episodes. Folks, until next time, this is Coach Fore, Coach's Locker Podcast.